My family excluded me from Christmas, but mailed me a $52,000 bill for my sister's car. I picked up the phone, called the bank, and said, "Take it back. I'm finished." Can you imagine opening an envelope and your entire world just shatters? One minute, you're trying to heal from the gut-wrenching pain of being completely cut out of your family's Christmas. The next, you're staring at a $52,000 invoice for a luxury car you didn't buy, a car your family bought for your sister, using your forged signature. What would you do? Because that, my friends, is the exact moment something inside me finally snapped. After a decade of being their personal ATM and emotional punching bag, they pushed too far. And that's when I made a call that changed absolutely everything. Transition to main story. If you're watching this from a family gathering right now, I hope you're cherishing those genuine connections. Hit like and subscribe while I tell you how I finally stood up for myself and discovered what real family truly means. My name is Amber Mitchell, and at 29, I thought I understood what family disappointment felt like. Growing up in Westchester County, New York, our 5-bedroom colonial with its manicured lawns and 3-car garage screamed perfect family from the outside. My father, Richard, a high-flying investment banker, and my mother, Diana, queen of the local charity circuit, were the picture of success. On paper, we had it all. But in reality, our home was an emotional wasteland where love was conditional, and it always came with a receipt. The dynamic shifted drastically when my sister, Jessica, arrived. I was 4. She was the golden child, effortlessly beautiful, charismatic, a force of nature I could never quite match. While I was the studious, responsible one, Jessica was vibrant, spontaneous. My parents adored these qualities in her. In me, they found them irritating. Jessica's tantrums? Passionate. My needs? Difficult. This pattern was relentless. Jessica wanted horseback riding lessons? Done. I wanted piano lessons? I had to earn straight A's just to justify the modest request. For her 16th birthday, a brand new Audi. For mine? A used Honda and a lecture about appreciating practicality. Despite it all, I worked hard. I graduated top of my class, earned a scholarship to Cornell, double majored in economics and business. While Jessica cycled through 3 different colleges, dropping out each time, I was landing prestigious internships and meticulously building my resume. By 24, I'd landed a junior financial analyst position in Manhattan. By 27, I had my own apartment, a healthy 401k, and was completely, proudly self-sufficient. But my independence came at a heavy price. Every family gathering became an opportunity for subtle jabs. Too career-focused. Too materialistic. The irony, of course, was suffocating. My parents, who measured success in luxury cars and country club memberships, criticized my ambition while simultaneously, relentlessly, exploiting it. It started small. Could you help Jessica with her rent this month? Could you loan Dad money for a business venture until his next commission? Could you contribute to Mom's charity gala since you're doing so well? Each request was cloaked in the sacred promise of family unity, of belonging. And each time I complied, the requests grew bolder, heavier. 3 years ago, I paid off Jessica's $12,000 credit card debt after she tearfully promised to be more responsible. 6 months later, she maxed it out again on a luxury vacation to Bali. When I dared express my frustration, my mother pulled me aside, telling me Jessica just experiences life differently, and reminded me how blessed I was to have financial stability. Last year, I covered my parents' property tax bill. They claimed to be a little short despite buying a vacation home in the Hamptons that same month. When I questioned it, my father reminded me they had sacrificed everything for my education, conveniently forgetting my scholarships and the student loans I'd only just finished paying off. Even with all this, I still craved their approval. Last October, I made one more desperate attempt to repair things. My treat, I offered, suggesting a family weekend in Manhattan. I booked a suite at a boutique hotel, secured Broadway tickets to a show Jessica had mentioned wanting to see, and reserved a table at an exclusive restaurant. The weekend was pleasant enough. My mother spent most of it critiquing my apartment size and location, while Jessica monopolized conversations with dramatic stories about her latest boyfriend. but it was fine. After that weekend, tensions with Jessica spiraled. She started calling me at work with financial emergencies, sending passive-aggressive texts when I couldn't respond immediately. My parents, meanwhile, increased their not-so-subtle comparisons, always framing Jessica's financial irresponsibility as living life to the fullest, while my stability was somehow a character flaw. As November melted into December, I found myself dreading and longing for the holidays all at once. Despite everything, I'd already bought thoughtful gifts for everyone, mentally preparing for the familiar dance of seeking approval while trying to set boundaries. I had no idea this Christmas would be different. In the most painful way possible. The realization hit me on December 15th, an ordinary Wednesday that suddenly became anything but. During my lunch break, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw it, my cousin Taylor's post. My entire family gathered around a glittering Christmas tree at my parents' home. Early Mitchell family Christmas, the caption read. So blessed to have everyone together. Everyone. Except me. My stomach dropped. I stared at my phone, trying to process. There was my father, carving a turkey. My mother, arranging presents. Jessica, laughing with aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, even distant relatives I barely recognized. The celebration had happened the previous weekend, and I hadn't received so much as a text. My hands shaking, I called my mother. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice artificially bright. "Oh, Amber, how are you, sweetheart?" "Mom," I asked, my voice barely steady, "why wasn't I invited to the family Christmas last weekend?" A pause. A dramatic sigh. "Oh, that. Well, it was very last minute, darling. We knew you're always so busy with work, and Jessica mentioned you had told her you had plans." I had told Jessica no such thing. When I pointed this out, another sigh. "Amber, please don't start. It was just a casual gathering. Nothing formal. You know how Jessica gets when she feels overshadowed by you. She's going through a difficult time right now, and we didn't want to create any tension. You understand, don't you, sweetheart? You've always been our strong one." Being the strong one was their code for the one we can dismiss without consequences. Before I could respond, she added they'd see me on Christmas Day for the real celebration. The invitation felt like an afterthought, a bone thrown to pacify me. Later that evening, Jessica sent a series of texts. "Sorry you missed the party. Was so fun. Mom said you were busy anyway. By the way, can you help me pick out Mom's gift? I'm thinking jewelry, but need your dollar input. LOL. No acknowledgement of the exclusion, no genuine apology, just another request for money disguised as sisterly bonding. That night, I lay awake, replaying years of similar incidents. The family vacation to Cancun I discovered through Facebook photos. My graduation dinner where everyone was 3 hours late because Jessica had a minor fender bender. My promotion celebration cut short when Jessica called, crying about a breakup. By morning, a calm settled over me. I had made a decision. I texted my mother. I wouldn't be joining them for Christmas Day after all. I had made other plans. What plans could be more important than family? She responded immediately. Family? The word had become so hollow. I didn't answer. Instead, I called my friend Leah. For years, Leah had been inviting me to her family's holiday celebrations. Unlike my biological family, Leah's parents had always treated me with genuine warmth. They asked about my work and actually listened. They remembered details about my life without keeping score of what I could do for them. "Of course, you can join us," Leah said without hesitation. "Mom always sets a place for you anyway. You're family to us, Amber." The contrast between this immediate, loving acceptance and my own family's calculated exclusion brought tears to my eyes. In the days leading up to Christmas, I threw myself into creating new traditions. I helped Leah's family decorate their tree, baked cookies using her grandmother's recipe, wrapped thoughtful gifts for people who truly valued my presence, not my presence. For the first time in years, I felt the genuine warmth the holiday season was supposed to bring. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with increasingly manipulative messages. My father called to say I was breaking your mother's heart. Jessica alternated between guilt-tripping texts and demands for shopping advice. Relatives I barely spoke to throughout the year suddenly had strong opinions about my selfish decision. The only message that didn't feel toxic came from my Aunt Patricia, my father's sister. She'd always been a bit of an outsider herself. "I heard you're not coming for Christmas," she said when I answered her call. "Smart girl." She went on, "I wanted to let you know that casual gathering was planned 3 months ago. I saw the invitations when I was at your parents' house in September." The confirmation of their deliberate exclusion stung, but also provided a chilling clarity. And then Patricia dropped another bomb. "Jessica totaled her car last month, you know. Drove it straight into a ditch after one of her nights out. Your parents have been scrambling to figure out how to get her a replacement without dipping into their Hamptons renovation fund." I thanked my aunt, trying to push the information from my mind. I was determined to enjoy a peaceful Christmas with people who actually wanted me around. Christmas Day with Leah's family was everything I hadn't known I needed. We ate too much, played board games, shared stories without agenda or manipulation. Nobody kept score of who gave what or commented on my career choices. When Leah's father toasted to family, both born and chosen, I felt a sense of belonging I hadn't experienced in years. I returned to my apartment that night with leftover pie, genuine hugs, and an invitation to their New Year's celebration. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to check my phone for messages from my biological family. I was finally starting to understand that family should add to your life, not drain it. Little did I know, my journey to this realization was about to accelerate dramatically. January arrived with New York's typical post-holiday gloom, gray skies, dirty snow, and the collective hangover of returning to normal life. After the festive season, I threw myself back into work, finding comfort in spreadsheets and projections that behaved according to logical rules, unlike family dynamics. 3 weeks after Christmas, I was starting to feel like myself again. The hurt of the exclusion had faded to a dull ache. I was focusing on my New Year's resolutions, setting better boundaries, prioritizing genuine relationships, and finally taking that financial certification course I'd been postponing. Then, the envelope arrived. It was a Thursday evening. Among the usual bills and flyers was a thick manila envelope, my parents' return address, my name in my mother's elegant handwriting. No note, just my name. Curious, I opened it while riding the elevator to my apartment. Inside was a stack of papers. The first page was an invoice for $52,000 from Luxury Motors of Westchester. Purchaser, Jessica Mitchell. Cosigner, Amber Mitchell. My breath hitched. I almost dropped the papers in shock. Below the invoice was loan documentation for a brand new Mercedes GLA Coupe, with monthly payments of $1,138 for 60 months. And there it was, my signature. On the cosigner line. A signature I had never provided. My hands trembling, I fumbled with my keys and barely made it inside my apartment before collapsing onto my couch. I flipped through the remaining papers, insurance documents, extended warranty information. And then a handwritten note from Jessica, "Thanks for helping with the new car. The old one was totaled, and I needed reliable transportation. Mom and Dad said you'd understand since you're doing so well. Payment details attached. First one due February 1st. Love you, sis. Zoxo." The casual entitlement of that note made my stomach turn. I immediately called my parents, my heart pounding in my chest. My father answered on the second ring. "Amber, did you get the paperwork we sent?" "Dad, what is this?" I choked out. "I never agreed to co-sign for Jessica's car. That's not my signature." "Now, Amber," he said, using that patronizing tone he'd perfected over the years, "don't be dramatic. We knew you'd want to help your sister. She's been through a trauma with the accident. The accident that was her fault because she was driving drunk." I countered, remembering Aunt Patricia's revelation. "That's beside the point," he dismissed. "She needs a car for her new job." "What new job?" As far as I knew, Jessica hadn't held steady employment in years. "She has an interview next week," he admitted. "But she needs to make a good impression. The Mercedes will help with that." The sheer absurdity of the statement would have been comical if it weren't so infuriating. "Dad, someone forged my signature. That's fraud. I never agreed to this." "Your mother signed for you," he said, utterly dismissively. We knew you'd be difficult about it, but family helps family. You make more than enough to cover the payments." I was speechless. The casual admission of fraud. The assumption that my income was theirs to allocate. The complete disregard for my autonomy. It was breathtaking in its audacity. "This is illegal," I finally managed. "I'm not paying for Jessica's car." "Don't be selfish, Amber," he scoffed. "After everything we've done for you." I hung up. Within minutes, my phone exploded. Text from Jessica. "Dad said you're being difficult about the car." "I need this car, Amber." "You're so selfish. You don't even drive a Mercedes, so why do you care? If you don't help me, I'll be stranded." Each message fueled my disbelief. I turned off my phone, poured myself a generous glass of wine, and tried to process what had just happened. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. A quick online search confirmed my suspicions. If my name was fraudulently added as a cosigner, I could potentially be held liable for the loan unless I reported the fraud. With growing unease, I logged into my bank accounts to make sure no unauthorized transactions had occurred. What I found sent a chill down my spine. Someone had attempted to access my main savings account the previous day, the account where I kept my emergency fund and down payment savings for a future home. Thankfully, the attempt had triggered a security alert due to unusual activity, and the bank had frozen the account pending my verification. When I called the bank, they confirmed the attempt had come from a recognized device, my old laptop, which I had given to my parents last year when I upgraded. The sense of violation was overwhelming. While I had been processing the car loan fraud, they had actually attempted to directly access my savings. This wasn't just entitlement, it was calculated theft. That afternoon, I received an email from my mother. "Amber, your father is very disappointed in your reaction. Jessica is heartbroken that you would abandon her in her time of need. As your mother, I must say, I raised you better than this." Family stands together. The car has already been purchased, and Jessica loves it. Don't ruin this for her. She's planning to post about it on Instagram this weekend and wants to thank you publicly for your generosity. Don't embarrass her by creating drama. The email perfectly encapsulated the family dynamic. My feelings were irrelevant. Jessica's wants were paramount, and my only value was what I could provide. The mention of social media was particularly telling. Appearances mattered more than ethics or legality. By the end of the day, my shock had transformed into something else entirely. Determination. For the first time, I saw my family's behavior with perfect clarity. This wasn't love. This wasn't even family. This was exploitation. And it had gone on long enough. I made an appointment with a lawyer for the following day. Then I called Aunt Patricia. "I'm not surprised," she sighed after I explained the situation. "They did something similar to your cousin Ryan a few years ago with one of their timeshare purchases. He ended up paying rather than fighting it. They're counting on you doing the same." "Not this time," I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "Not anymore." The lawyer's office was in a converted brownstone in Midtown, warm wood interiors contrasting with the January chill outside. Natalie Hoffman, the attorney Leah had recommended, reviewed the documents with a practiced eye, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "This is textbook fraud," she said finally, removing her reading glasses. "Your mother forged your signature on a legally binding financial document. The fact that she's your mother doesn't make it any less criminal." "What are my options?" I asked, clutching my coffee cup for warmth. "You have several, none of them pleasant," she replied candidly. "You can report the fraud to the police, which would likely result in criminal charges against your mother. You can report it to the bank and dealership as fraud without pressing charges, though they might pursue their own action. Or you can pay for a car you never agreed to buy." Put so bluntly, the choice seemed obvious. Yet, decades of conditioning made me hesitate. If I report the fraud, what happens to the car? Most likely repossessed. Unless your sister or parents can qualify for the loan without you. Given what you've told me about their financial habits, that seems unlikely. I nodded, processing this information and my relationship with my family. Natalie gave me a sympathetic look. "I can't advise you on that aspect, but ask yourself, What kind of relationship do you currently have with people who would commit fraud against you? It was a fair question, and one that haunted me as I left her office with a clear legal strategy, but an emotional maelstrom. When I turned my phone back on, I had 17 missed calls and 36 text messages. My father had escalated to threats. If you pursue this fraud nonsense, you can consider yourself cut off from this family permanently. Your mother is beside herself with your ingratitude. Jessica had alternated between rage and manipulation. I already showed everyone my new car. How could you do this to me? I told you about the job interview. I need to make a good impression. Remember when I covered for you when you crashed Dad's boat? You owe me. I had never crashed our father's boat. The fabricated leverage was almost impressive in its desperation. Even extended family members had been enlisted. Cousins I spoke to maybe once a year were suddenly messaging me about family loyalty and helping those in need. Uncle Robert, my father's brother and business partner, called to remind me that family disputes should stay private and suggested I was being overly legalistic about a simple misunderstanding. The coordinated pressure campaign only strengthened my resolve. I forwarded everything to Natalie and followed her advice: document all communications while limiting my responses. That evening, my boss, Sandra, called. I had returned to work, but had been distracted, my usual precision noticeably absent. Amber, is everything all right? The Wellington presentation seemed off today. And that's not like you. I hesitated, then decided on honesty. I'm dealing with a family situation. My parents forged my signature on a car loan for my sister. I'm working with a lawyer to address it. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. I see, Sandra finally said. That's significant. Do you need some time off? No, I said quickly. Work is actually helping me stay grounded, but I might need a flexible schedule for some legal appointments. Of course, she responded. And Amber, don't let anyone take advantage of you, family or otherwise. I learned that lesson the hard way. The unexpected support from my boss contrasted sharply with my family's behavior. It reinforced what I was slowly coming to understand: respect wasn't determined by blood relation. 2 days later, I discovered someone had attempted to access my investment accounts. The attempt failed due to two-factor authentication, but the pattern was clear. I immediately changed all my passwords and security questions, removing any information my family might know. Then my mother called. Amber Elizabeth Mitchell, she began, using my full name as she always did when laying on guilt. We need to discuss this car situation like adults. Your father and I are hosting dinner tomorrow night. Jessica will be there. We expect you at 7. It wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. In the past, I would have complied immediately, eager for any opportunity to win their approval. This time I agreed. For entirely different reasons. I needed to set boundaries face to face. The next evening, I arrived at my parents' house exactly on time. The familiar colonial looked the same as always, perfectly maintained, impressively imposing, and utterly cold. Through the front window, I could see Jessica's new Mercedes parked prominently in the driveway, while my parents' vehicles were tucked away in the garage. My mother answered the door with an air kiss that didn't quite reach my cheek. Finally ready to be reasonable, she asked, leading me to the dining room where my father and Jessica waited. Jessica was scrolling through her phone, barely looking up when I entered. My father stood by the fireplace, tumbler of scotch in hand, his expression a practiced blend of disappointment and authority. Sit down, Amber, he said, gesturing to the chair across from Jessica. Your mother has prepared your favorite meal. Let's discuss this calmly. My favorite meal was actually Jessica's preference. I had disliked beef stroganoff since childhood, a detail they had never bothered to remember. Before we begin, my father continued, as my mother served the food, I want to express our disappointment in your handling of this situation. Involving a lawyer, threatening fraud charges. This isn't how our family operates. How does our family operate, Dad? I asked quietly, my voice surprisingly steady. By forging signatures? By attempting to drain my savings accounts? By excluding me from family gatherings and then expecting me to finance Jessica's lifestyle? Jessica slammed her fork down. Oh my God, are you still whining about Christmas? It was just a small gathering. It was our entire extended family, Jessica. Everyone but me. Because you're so judgmental. You make everyone uncomfortable with your job and your perfect apartment and your constant criticism of my choices. My mother placed a hand on Jessica's arm. Amber, you know your sister is sensitive. You've always been jealous of her, and frankly, it's unbecoming for a woman your age. The familiar script was playing out exactly as expected. Jessica the victim. Amber the villain. Reality, completely irrelevant. I'm not paying for the car, I stated firmly. What you did was illegal. I've frozen all my accounts that you might have access to, and I've documented the fraud attempts. My father's face darkened. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me? I interrupted, surprising even myself. I worked for my scholarships. I paid off my student loans. I built my career through hard work and discipline. Meanwhile, you've supported Jessica through multiple failed degrees, bailed her out of credit card debt, and now committed fraud to buy her a luxury car she can't afford. We raised you, my mother snapped. We gave you a home, an education, opportunities. That's literally the minimum legal requirement of parenthood, I countered. And you've been making me pay for it ever since. As if I should be eternally grateful for basic parental responsibilities. Jessica, always quick to escalate, stood up so abruptly her chair tipped over. You think you're so much better than everyone? News flash, Amber. Nobody likes you. Even your boyfriend left because you're a cold, calculating. My ex-boyfriend had actually left because he'd been cheating with Jessica, a fact they didn't know I was aware of. The casual cruelty was illuminating. These people weren't just taking advantage of me financially. They actively disliked me while simultaneously expecting me to fund their lifestyle. If you don't pay for this car, my father said, his voice dangerously quiet, you're no longer part of this family. No more holidays, no inheritance, no connection to the Mitchell name. The threat that would have once devastated me now felt almost liberating. You're asking me to choose between $52,000 for a car I never agreed to buy and a family that commits fraud against me, attempts to steal from me, and treats me with consistent disrespect, I said, standing up, my napkin placed neatly beside my untouched meal. That's not actually a difficult choice. As I walked toward the door, my mother called after me. Jessica needs that car. What is she supposed to do? I turned back one last time. The same thing I did when I needed transportation. Buy a car she can actually afford. The drive home was a blur. Adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had finally said things I'd been holding back for years. The relief was palpable, but so was the grief. I had just lost my family, or perhaps acknowledged the loss that had happened long ago. The aftermath of that family dinner brought unexpected clarity. Rather than the crushing guilt I had anticipated, I felt lighter, as if I'd put down a burden I'd been carrying for decades. Still, moments of doubt crept in. Was I overreacting? Was family loyalty more important than self-respect? Had I irreparably damaged relationships that should be preserved at any cost? These questions followed me through sleepless nights and distracted workdays. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Lorachin, who specialized in family trauma. During our second session, she asked a question that stopped me cold. Amber, if a friend told you this story about their family, what would you advise them to do? The answer came immediately. I'd tell them to run and never look back. Why is it different when it's your own experience? I had no good answer. Meanwhile, my family escalated their campaign. Jessica posted photos of herself with the Mercedes on every social media platform, tagging me with captions like, "Best sister ever," "Blessed family support," and "When your sister knows you deserve luxury sibling love." The deliberate public narrative made it clear, if I reported the fraud, I would be cast as the villain who took away Jessica's prized possession. Out of spite, my parents' approach was more direct. They began contacting my friends and colleagues, sharing edited versions of the situation that painted me as mentally unstable and ungrateful. Several coworkers mentioned receiving concerned calls from my mother about my fragile state and financial confusion. My father even called Sandra, my boss, expressing worry about my ability to handle client funds given my emotional problems regarding family financial obligations. Fortunately, Sandra saw right through the manipulation. Your father called me today, she told me during our weekly check-in. I've never heard such obvious damage control in my life, and I work with crisis PR firms regularly. The invasion of my professional life crossed yet another unforgivable boundary. That evening, I met with my financial advisor, Marcus, to ensure my assets were completely secured. Based on what you've told me, I recommend a complete financial firewall, he advised. New accounts at different institutions, updated beneficiaries on all policies, and a thorough credit check to make sure there aren't other surprises lurking. The credit check revealed another shock, an application for a store credit card in my name from a high-end furniture retailer, dated just 2 days after the car purchase. The application had been rejected due to the fraud alert I had placed, but the attempt itself was telling. This wasn't just about Jessica's car. It was the beginning of what could have become systematic financial exploitation. As January turned to February, Jessica's social media campaign took a darker turn. She began posting about toxic family members who pretend to support you and recognizing narcissists in your life. The projection was almost impressive. One post particularly stood out, a selfie in front of the Mercedes with the caption, "Some people would rather destroy what you love than see you happy. Stay strong against the haters, even when they're family." The comment section filled with supportive messages from relatives and friends who had no idea of the truth. Cousin Taylor, who had posted the Christmas gathering photos, even commented, "Blood doesn't always mean love. Creating boundaries is self-care." The irony was painful. That night, I received a text that finally pushed me over the edge. Jessica, apparently drunk judging by the typos and timestamp, sent, "You think you are so much better than everyone, but you are just a lonely BC with no one who loves you. Mom and Dad only put up with you for your money. We all laugh at you behind your back. Enjoy your empty apartment while I enjoy my car." I stared at the message for a long time, a strange calm settling over me. The raw honesty of her drunk text confirmed what I had suspected all along. My family didn't love me. They tolerated me for what I could provide. The realization should have devastated me, but instead, it felt like permission. Permission to finally let go. The next morning, with complete clarity and zero hesitation, I called Natalie Hoffman. "I'm ready to proceed with reporting the fraud," I told her, my voice firm. "All of it." "Are you sure?" she asked. "Once we start this process, it will be difficult to reverse." "I'm sure," I said. "They've left me no choice." Then I called the bank that had financed Jessica's Mercedes. "My name is Amber Mitchell," I said when I reached the fraud department. "I need to report a forged signature on an auto loan." The representative asked several verification questions, then transferred me to a manager named Robert. His voice was kind but professional as he guided me through the process. I explained the situation, providing dates, documentation, and contact information for Natalie. "I understand this must be difficult, Ms. Mitchell," Robert said. "Family fraud is unfortunately common, but reporting it takes courage." "What happens now?" I asked. "We'll conduct an investigation, which typically takes 5 to 7 business days. If we confirm the fraud, as seems likely based on what you've shared, the loan will be removed from your name and credit report. The lender will then take appropriate action regarding the vehicle." "You mean repossession?" "Most likely, yes. Unless the other party can qualify for the loan independently." I knew Jessica couldn't. Her credit was destroyed from years of missed payments and maxed-out cards. My parents could probably afford the payments, but would be unlikely to take on the debt themselves. That would defeat their entire purpose of putting it in my name. "I understand," I said. "Please proceed." After hanging up, I sat in my silent apartment, the weight of my decisions settling around me. I had just initiated a process that would likely result in my sister losing her car and potentially lead to criminal charges against my mother for fraud. The family I had known was irretrievably shattered. Yet, alongside the grief, was something unexpected. Pride. For the first time in my life, I had stood up for myself against the people who had been exploiting me for years. The cost was high, but the alternative, continuing to be their financial and emotional hostage, was no longer acceptable. I picked up my phone and texted Leah. "I did it. I reported the fraud." Her response came immediately. "I'm so proud of you. Want to come over for dinner?" Dad's making his famous lasagna. I smiled through tears. Family, real family, was still possible, just not with the people who shared my DNA. The bank moved faster than expected. Just 3 days after my report, I received a call from Robert in the fraud department. Ms. Mitchell, our investigation confirms your signature was forged on the loan documents. We've removed the loan from your credit report and financial responsibility. We're proceeding with repossession of the vehicle. How soon will that happen? I asked, my stomach tightening despite my certainty that I was doing the right thing. The repossession agent has been assigned. It could be today, tomorrow. They don't provide specific timing for obvious reasons. I thanked him and hung up, bracing myself for the fallout. It came even sooner than I anticipated. Less than 2 hours later, my phone exploded with notifications. Jessica was calling repeatedly, leaving increasingly hysterical voicemails between texts. They took my car. How could you do this to me? I am stranded at the mall. You ruined my life. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked her number. Something I should have done weeks ago. My parents were next. My father's voice, usually so controlled, shook with rage in his message. What you've done is unforgivable. Your mother is in tears. Jessica is devastated. I never thought my own daughter could be so vindictive and cruel. Don't bother calling back. You're no longer welcome in this house. I blocked their numbers, too, then methodically went through my contacts, blocking every family member who might serve as their proxy. It felt like cutting off limbs, but also like excising a cancer. Social media became a battlefield. Jessica posted a tearful video about her car being stolen due to family betrayal, carefully crafting a narrative that portrayed her as the victim without mentioning the fraud. Relatives and family friends commented with outrage and support, condemning the unnamed villain who had hurt sweet Jessica. I deactivated all my social accounts. The court of public opinion didn't matter. The truth did. The next day, the other shoe dropped. My mother had been contacted by the bank's fraud department. Faced with evidence of the forgery and potential criminal charges, she was scrambling. Her lawyer called Natalie, floating vague offers of family reconciliation and financial restitution if I would withdraw my fraud claim. They're running scared, Natalie told me. The bank has clear evidence of forgery, which is a felony. They're hoping you'll back down to protect your mother from criminal charges. What do you advise? I asked. That depends on what you want. If your goal is justice, we continue. If your goal is separation with minimal further conflict, we could negotiate a settlement that includes a formal admission of wrongdoing, financial compensation for your legal fees, and legally binding agreements that they'll never attempt to access your finances again. I chose the latter. I didn't want my mother to go to jail. Not out of love at this point, but because the family drama would never end if she became a martyr to Jessica's cause. I wanted clean closure, not an ongoing saga. The settlement negotiations took 2 weeks. My parents, faced with the reality of potential criminal charges, agreed to my terms with surprising speed. They would pay all my legal fees, sign notarized admissions of the fraud, and agree to legally binding non-contact orders. In exchange, I would not press criminal charges. Throughout this process, I received unexpected support from quarters I hadn't anticipated. Aunt Patricia called to tell me she was proud of me. Someone needed to stand up to them, she said. They've been pulling these stunts for years, and everyone's been too afraid of being cut off to say anything. Even more surprisingly, my cousin Ryan reached out. I heard what happened with the car, he texted. Just wanted you to know I went through something similar with them 3 years ago. I wish I'd had your courage. The family I thought would stand united against me was revealing cracks I'd never noticed. Other victims of my parents' manipulation, who had been suffering in silence. The day the settlement was finalized, I received a text from an unknown number. It was Jessica, using a friend's phone to bypass my block. You think you've won, but you've lost everything. Enjoy your money and your empty life. We're all better off without you. Her words were meant to wound, but they landed differently than she intended. Yes, I had lost my biological family. But what exactly had they contributed to my life beyond stress, manipulation, and exploitation? The emptiness I felt wasn't from their absence. It was from realizing they had never truly been present as loving family members in the first place. That evening, I met Leah and her parents for dinner. They had become my support system throughout the ordeal, offering practical help and emotional stability without judgment. To Amber, Leah's father toasted, raising his glass, for having the courage to choose self-respect over appeasement. Not everyone does. As we shared a meal filled with genuine conversation and laughter, I realized I wasn't grieving the loss of family. I was grieving the illusion that I had ever had one and celebrating the discovery that family could be found elsewhere. 6 months passed, bringing summer heat to New York and an unexpected peace to my life. The legal battle with my family had concluded, the settlement enforced, and the non-contact orders maintained. My mother had avoided criminal charges. Jessica had eventually secured financing for a much more modest vehicle through my parents, and I had begun the process of healing from decades of emotional manipulation. The transition wasn't easy. There were nights I woke up panicking, convinced I had made a terrible mistake. Holidays and birthdays brought complicated emotions. Mother's Day was particularly difficult. I found myself standing in the card aisle at the drugstore, staring at messages celebrating loving mothers, feeling like an alien, observing a custom from another planet. But there were surprising benefits to cutting toxic ties. My work performance improved dramatically once I wasn't constantly managing family crises. I received a substantial promotion and bonus, which I invested rather than diverting to family emergencies. My apartment, once criticized by my mother as depressingly small, became a peaceful sanctuary, decorated exactly as I pleased. Most importantly, I discovered what genuine relationships felt like. Without the constant drain of my biological family, I had emotional energy to invest in friendships that had withered under the strain. I joined a book club, started taking weekend hiking trips with a group from work, and even began dating again, this time with healthier expectations and boundaries. Therapy with Dr. Chin continued weekly, then bi-weekly as I developed stronger coping mechanisms. Family trauma doesn't disappear overnight, she reminded me. Healing isn't linear. There will be setbacks and difficult days. The goal isn't to never feel pain about your family. It's to process that pain in ways that don't derail your life. One unexpected aspect of recovery was learning to recognize and correct the distorted thinking patterns my family had instilled. I no longer felt guilty for setting boundaries. I stopped apologizing for my success. I recognized that generosity shouldn't require self-sacrifice and that love shouldn't come with invoices. In July, I received an email from Aunt Patricia. She and Uncle Stephen were celebrating their 40th anniversary with a small gathering at their lake house and wanted me to attend. No drama, no manipulation, just good food and better company, she promised. And absolutely no other Mitchells invited. I accepted, curious but cautious. The weekend proved to be a revelation. Aunt Patricia had always been the family rebel, maintaining distance from my parents' materialistic values while still participating in obligatory gatherings. Away from their influence, she was vibrant, funny, and surprisingly insightful. "Your mother was always like this," she told me as we sat on the dock, watching the sunset. Even as a teenager, she measured everything in terms of what she could get from people. "Your father was a perfect match, equally transactional, equally status-conscious. When you were born, I'd hoped you'd somehow escape their influence." "I did," I said. "Just took 29 years. She squeezed my hand. Better late than never. The most unexpected reconciliation came in August. My cousin Taylor, who had posted the Christmas photos that revealed my exclusion, reached out via email. Unlike the rest of the family, her message contained a genuine apology. "I've been thinking about what happened at Christmas and everything since," she wrote. "I didn't understand the full situation then, but I've seen how Aunt Diana and Uncle Richard have been rewriting history, and it's opened my eyes to patterns I never noticed before. I'm sorry I participated in hurting you. If you're open to it, I'd like to reconnect on your terms. No pressure." We met for coffee at a neutral location. The conversation was awkward at first, but gradually warmed as we shared our respective experiences with the family dynamic. Taylor revealed that since my departure, Jessica had become increasingly demanding, and my parents more openly manipulative with other family members. It's like they need someone to use, she observed. When you left, they just redirected to other targets. I felt a pang of guilt, quickly followed by clarity. I wasn't responsible for protecting others from my parents' behavior. Each person had to recognize the pattern and make their own choices. Taylor and I agreed to proceed cautiously with rebuilding our relationship. No family gossip, no pressure to attend events where my parents would be present, just occasional meetups between two adults with shared history. By fall, I had established a new normal. My finances were completely secured. My career was thriving, and my social circle consisted of people who valued me for myself rather than what I could provide. I still had moments of sadness about what my family relationship could have been, but they no longer dominated my emotional landscape. In October, exactly 1 year after my ill-fated attempt to repair family ties with the Manhattan weekend, I received a text from Jessica. Despite the non-contact order, she had found a way to reach me through a work colleague's phone. "I hate what you did, but I get it now," she wrote. "Dad and Mom have been putting me in charge of Thanksgiving and expecting me to pay for everything. When I said I couldn't afford it, Dad suggested I borrow from my 401k. I remembered what you said about buying things I can actually afford. You were right. Don't respond to this. I'll deny everything if they find out I contacted you. Just wanted you to know." I didn't reply, but I saved the message. It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement. Jessica was beginning to see the pattern, though whether she would break it remained her choice. As the holiday season approached again, I found myself reflecting on all I had learned. The car invoice that had once seemed like the worst crisis of my life had actually been a gift. The final push I needed to recognize and escape a lifetime of exploitation disguised as family love. I had learned that family isn't defined by DNA, but by mutual respect, genuine support, and love that doesn't come with conditions or receipts. I had discovered that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for healthy relationships. Most importantly, I had realized that walking away from toxic connections isn't failure. Sometimes, it's the bravest form of self-respect. This Christmas would be different. I had accepted Leah's invitation to join her family at their cabin in Vermont. I had a new tradition of volunteering at a local shelter on Christmas Eve. I had plans for New Year's with colleagues who had become friends. My life wasn't empty without my biological family. It was fuller, healthier, and infinitely more peaceful. The journey hadn't been easy, and it wasn't completely over. I would always carry the scars of my upbringing, the whispers of self-doubt, the reflexive guilt. But I had learned to recognize those thoughts as echoes, not truth. I had discovered that family is something you can choose, and love is something you should never have to purchase. Call to action. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with you, please know that you deserve relationships that add to your life rather than drain it. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. And sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most peaceful outcomes. What would you have done in my shoes? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice for your own well-being? Tell me what you think in the comments below, I really want to know. Don't forget to like this video if it spoke to you, subscribe for more stories of resilience, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose yourself sometimes. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, real family supports your growth, not your bank account.